Recording. All right, so hi everyone. I'm Charlie Ducray here to introduce a very special guest today, track and field superstar Robert Allen from Trinity College. How are you today, Robert?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's a pleasure. So Robert is a 5'11", 170-pound junior sprinter from Bloomfield, Connecticut, a walk-on turned All-American in the 60-meter dash and indoor track and field last year. As a sophomore, Robert also received all New England Division III awards in the 60-meter dash and 200-meter dash during the indoor season. Robert also set the Trinity track and field record in the 60-meter dash running in time of 6.89 seconds. In high school, Robert attended Loomis Chaffee in Windsor, Connecticut, where he also was a senior captain in track and field, excelling in the triple jump and long jump. Robert also played varsity football as a wide receiver and defensive back. So thank you for taking the time out of your day today to come talk to me and your experience about being a walk-on athlete. Everyone at LRT Sports, and especially I, appreciate you coming out to share your story. Most importantly, younger athletes across the country will benefit from hearing your story. So I'm just going to list off a few questions. So first of all, what's it like being a walk-on at Trinity College?
Being a walk-on, actually, I feel like it's not that much different from being like any other athlete. I just think that the main difference is just the initial expectations, I guess, coming into the team. Because as a walk-on, no one really is expecting you to necessarily do anything great for the team. It's just like, oh, this kid is doing this because of this and this, or because he needs a sport, or just likes the team environment, or things like that. When that's like different from if I was actively recruited. But I think that after like the first meet where you go and compete and you like show like, oh, this kid can actually be good or has some potential, like people actually forget that I'm a walk-on. Like if you ask the majority of the kids on my team, they wouldn't even know.
Yeah, I think going off of that, what was the transition like from high school track to college track?
I think the biggest transition for me was just like high school track is more, I don't want to say team oriented, but it's more like, it was more centered around getting points for like your overall team, where like I would go and jump into different events where I would need to, my coach would throw me into this and be like, just try and do well enough where you get some points for the team or
Right.
things like that. But in college, it's a lot more specialized, where I am almost exclusively doing the events that I specialize in, the 60 indoor, the 200 indoor, and et cetera, things like that. So it's kind of more focused individually, I think, than it was in high school, which it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. I guess it just comes down to your preference.
Right. And then more on the academic side. So what's it like transitioning from being an athlete in high school to then like going to an athlete in college?
Yeah, I think it's just the athletic part is a similar time commitment, I feel like, because you spend about 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours each day. I get practice and other like lifts and stuff like that. But I think the main difference is just the intensity of the workload. Since like you have more work and generally it's going to be more difficult managing that time with, even though the athletic side time-wise is essentially stayed the same, since the academic side has kind of increased in intensity, just makes it a bit harder to juggle that time than it would be in high school. But it's very manageable. It's very doable. There's plenty of athletes with good grades here.
Yeah, it's great to hear. What was your recruiting process like?
It's pretty non-existent. I ran track in high school, and after I got accepted to Trinity, I sent an email to Coach Mason. I was like, hey, this is who I am. I did this in high school. It'd be fine if I joined the track team. He was like, yeah. He looked at the stats that I sent him. I just sent him like my PRs and stuff from the triple jump and other races. And I sent him over. I think he was like, yeah, it's fine if you come over. And then first day of practice, I just showed up, and the rest is history. That's about it.
That's great to hear. So going off of that, what's your average day like as an athlete?
Uh, I guess it's so. I guess I'll give you like my schedule tomorrow. For example, I would have class in the morning because generally I like to schedule my classes earlier since we have practice and lifts like later on in the day. So it's just harder for me to book classes during those time periods. So
Mhm.
I have class from on Mondays. I have class from 10 to about 12:20ish, and then I'm done for that day. I would get lunch almost immediately after class. I'll go get my COVID testing, and yeah, then I'll have about like a 2 hour block that's between classes and practice where I could use to do work. I generally spend about 30 of the minute getting ready for practice and walking over to practice. But yeah, class, a little break time, practice, and then dinner, and then the rest of the night I generally spend working or doing anything else that I want to do that night.
You have a pretty busy day.
They're long days, but they're good at least.
So what's it like, or let me rephrase that. What does it take to become an elite athlete in college?
What's it take? I think it just takes a certain level of dedication, I feel like, it's just because you have so many other obligations to uphold whenever you whenever you are within like the block where you need to actively whenever you're actively using your athletic time, you just need to make sure that you have the intensity and just the focus to maximize whatever it is that you're doing. Just because I feel like yeah, that would be one of the biggest things. Just being able to make the most out of the small amount of time that you have, and just when it's time to compete, when it's time to practice, you just have to make sure that you're absolutely focused, absolutely locked in those moments, because after you're done, you won't actually like need to be doing other things throughout the day as a college student. So
Right. You mentioned dedication. So what are three aspects you would name that are the best characteristics for an athlete in college?
uh, I would say dedication one, two, just I think just like actually enjoying the sport that you play, because the more that the less that it feels like a chore, like an obligation, the more you'll want to invest time into it, and the better that you'll do, presumably. So I think enjoying like dedication, being dedicated to it, actively enjoying the sport, and three, I think just being disciplined, because there's a lot of things that can distract you or inhibit you from doing well in your sport, both within the sport and outside of it. So just making sure that you're being disciplined in like the structure, and being disciplined when it comes to maintaining your maintaining your athletic like the structure that's set aside for you is just pretty important, I think.
Yeah, that's great. So what advice would you give to athletes in high school?
I think a good advice to give to them is just take your recovery time seriously, like your downtime, because I know, like, I'm not sure how often someone has like been injured, or like if they will understand, but you only have 4 years to compete in college, and an injury is just such a major setback. It's just so unfortunate that it just once you get hurt, it's just nothing that you can do really except try to recover. It's so much lost time, so much lost potential, so much wasted work and effort, that you really want to do everything you can to avoid that. And plus, when you're not actively using like your recovery, like your downtime, to make sure that your body is reacting well to the training, then it actively like it won't react to the training in the way that would be the most beneficial to you. And so just like sometimes you have to think about your sport outside of the required hours and make sure that you're putting in the groundwork so that you can be successful when it's time to actually compete.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And then do you think you should use social media in any aspect in a way during your recruiting process?
I think I think it's a good idea just to reach out to athletes that are currently on the team, or even just getting a feel for what the environment like is going to be at the college that you're going to attend, just so that you can prepare yourself and make the necessary accommodations. So I think social media it's actually a really good like networking tool that you can use to help yourself out in the future. So I think it's good.
That's pretty good. And then how many hours a week do you think track takes up?
At the very least, it takes up at least 18, I think, because 3 hours a day. When on days where we have lift, for sure, 3 hours a day, and then some days practice runs longer, and some days you're like doing things where you're like not actively in practice, but you may be like rolling out or like watching film or doing something else that will prepare you for like practice. So I think overall that'll generally it generally adds up to around 3 hours a day, I think. And then we get Sundays off, so not counting that, 6 days, 3 hours.
Yeah, that's not too bad. It could be worse.
Could be worse for sure.
And then what measures has Trinity taken because of COVID this semester?
Oh yeah, a lot. Trinity's been playing it pretty safe when it comes to COVID. All the athletes have to get tested at least twice a week. And I know other teams do rapid testing the day before their games. Social distancing while we're in practice, masks on while we're in practice and competing. We're gonna be wearing masks consistently as we run. Um, Restricted access to like dining halls and like food spaces. So the school's been doing a lot to make sure that COVID isn't spreading on campus, and it's been working so far. Our cases have been pretty few this semester, so that's good.
That's good. And then is there a noticeable difference when running with a mask?
Oh yeah, for sure. You can feel it. You can feel it. It's just you don't actually. I think at this point I've kind of forgotten what it's like to run without one, so it's kind of hard for me to visualize in my head. But at least at the most recent workout, I'm always constantly thinking like, oh, this would be so much easier if my mask is off. My airflow is just so restricted right now, especially when it's raining out and your mask starts to like stick into your nose and actively is choking you. The mask it's a burden at times, but is potentially necessary.
And then going off of that, how has track competition changed because of COVID?
Um, while we haven't actively had a competition yet, from what is projected, it's going to be significantly lower in terms of, I guess, just contact and support from those around you, because it seems like the entire girls team will be competing against their counterparts at other schools, and then the the men will be coming in to compete. And so like there's going to be that distance between us, that lack of support, as well as no fans will be allowed to be like spectating the meet. So there's also that missing aspect. So COVID's really going to be changing a lot when it comes to competitions, not to mention we'll be wearing masks. So
And then a couple of fun questions. What's your favorite go-to meal before a meet?
um actually I don't even eat that much before meets. I don't know, I just feel like I don't want to be too weighed down. So I generally if I do eat something, I'll generally eat like some fruit. Like I'll have like an apple or an orange or like a bar of some sort, but I don't eat too much, to be honest.
Yeah, got to keep it light.
Right.
And
Gotta stay
then,
fast.
sorry, what was that?
I'll say I gotta stay fast.
Exactly. And then what's your favorite cool down stretch after a race?
Yeah. I think grass cutters for sure. Ever since I pulled my hamstring, anything that takes like tightness away from my hamstring is just, I love it. I need it. I need it.
All right, well, that's all for me, Robert. Thank you so much for coming to meet today. Everyone at LRT Sports really appreciates it. So I wish you the best of luck this season. I assume you have one, and we'll keep an eye out for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Have a nice day.